Alrighty, I'm here with Kelly Diels. I'm so delighted to chat with Kelly. I came across Kelly's work through Tarzan K, who is also a presenter in this summit. And yeah, I just have 10 zillion questions for Kelly. So we'll see what we can get through in our little short window of time. But thank you so much for joining me today.
I'm so happy you invited me. Thank you for doing that.
I feel like you and I, it's one of those funny things where, we haven't met, we don't really know each other, but because I've been following your work and we have so many threads of commonality in our lives, I feel like, I don't know, I feel like we're kindred spirits. We've both got zillions of children. We're both breadwinners and, women who are supporting large families and large households. And actually, one of the first things I wanted to dive into today is a couple of things that I've heard you speak about and have really impacted me. One of which was you making a very bold and clear statement in one of your trainings or somewhere that I heard you speak, and literally just saying, I need to earn good money because I have a large family that I'm supporting, and there's a lot of resource that needs to be made available for that. And for me, as a single mother of 5 children, when I heard that, I don't know why it was such a light bulb. I was like, of course, this makes total sense. There's a question here around expanding capacity and owning that and sitting in the center of that. So yeah, I wanted to just start with that as a kind of jumping into, we don't have to be poor and struggling.
No, and the thing is what I know to be true is when I have resources, what I do is I resource the people around me. Right. And so I have a gazillion children. I have 4 children still living at home. One is an adult who's off in the world. So I have raised 5 children as well. And it takes a lot of resources to facilitate the lives of 5 other humans and educate them. And I have also been in the role of paying for medical care for family members, paying for the monthly expenses of elders who can no longer support themselves. I've helped someone immigrate to Canada, one of my extended family members, and sponsored their education. Those are big, expensive projects. And I need to earn a lot of money to make those things happen. And so, when there's a lot of talk about we need to have low prices to be affordable and accessible, it's just not possible for me to act in that way. And that's fine. Everyone has different needs. So what I want people to do when we're looking at our businesses is look at what your actual needs are in terms of what you need to survive and thrive and, facilitate the well-being of your community and the people around you, and charge that number. And don't worry if other people are charging less or other people are charging more. Your business model is about what works in your life. And there is a very wide world out there. There are people who can pay $4 a course. There's people who can pay like $400,000 for a course. There is a wide world out there, and you can figure out your space where you get compensated appropriately and your family's needs are met, and other people can pay what is in their ability to pay. So for me, the question isn't about being affordable or accessible. The question is about economic justice. Because having a single mom with 5 children in poverty so that her courses can be cheap is not economic justice.
Yeah, that makes so much sense to me. And it's one of those things that when you say it like that, it seems so obvious and so clear. And yet we can go through such a winding road to get to that level of clarity. Like there's so much unpacking that comes to getting to that point. Another one of the great insights around money, the big aha moments that I had through your work, was I heard you saying on a training that I took with you, you were talking about people that survive with very little money. So, that people that are managing very small budgets, and that we often have a sort of mantra or a narrative around that, which says, oh, I'm not good with money. I'm not good with money. And you gave such a beautiful reframe on that, where you said, well, actually, you're amazing with money because you're managing to survive with such a small income and make it stretch and make it work. So talk to me about that. That was such a big.
Yeah, that was actually part of a conversation that I was having with a former client, Anjali Nath, who has a thing called Liberation School. And we were talking, and most of this insight originally came from her, but we were talking about how people who are poor often get demonized as being not good with money, of having made poor choices. But the times in my life when I have been broke and I spent a lot of time poor, right? I was a genius with money. I was so resourceful. I joke that I used to make money bend and stretch and do high kicks, right? Like I should not have been able to survive on what we were surviving on. And yet somehow I did. You know, I had all these ingenious little hacks for saving money, making things stretch, fixing things. You know, I just had all these ingenious hacks. So I wasn't bad with money. I didn't have enough income. And there are two different things there. So I just want to note that there's so much stigma about being under-resourced, and the equation really is people who are under-resources are making bad decisions or aren't good with money or don't know how to use money. It's just patently false, just patently false.
Yeah. Yeah, that was such a bright insight for me. And I want to kind of segue into a slightly different area now. And one of the trainings of yours that I'm doing at the moment is around creating an articulation around what my process is in the way that I share my work in the world. And this has been such a powerful training for me, because what I'm realizing is I have a very unique and very specific way of doing things that, you know, that's the magic that I bring to the work that I do. And a lot of the people that will be listening to this, 90% of them are yoga teachers, and many of them are teaching, you know, perhaps teaching regular classes at a gym or at a yoga studio, and really getting by on minimum wage is the truth. You know, they've done a lot of training, they're very dedicated to the work that they do, and they love it and they believe in it, but it's often not well paid. And part of my work in the world is around supporting yoga teachers who are in that kind of dynamic to see that there is a possibility that they could be generating more income and monetizing and leveraging what they're offering in a more skillful way. Part of that, I perceive, is to do with noticing how you're working and what you're offering and how that differs from what everyone else is doing. What would can you talk us through a little bit of a process or a journey that someone who hasn't really thought about that, you know, they may be like, well, I just teach yoga, you know, it's like the same as everyone else's yoga kind of thing.
Yeah.
What's the process around reframing that?
I mean, there's a couple of things. There's this person on Instagram who calls themselves the Movement Maestro, Dr. Sean Culte. And in one of their trainings, they said, people don't buy coaching, they buy coaches. Meaning, sure, there's a million coaches out there. There's a million yoga teachers out there. And why do you go to that particular class? It's because you really like the way that person is doing the work or doing the material. So what that brings it back to is, yes, there's a lot of yoga teachers out there, and there's, you know, a certain number of methodologies that people do yoga in. But beyond that, they're showing up for you. Maybe they're showing up because they couldn't make another time slot or what have you. But often you're dedicated, regular people who come back to your class over and over again. There is something special and unique about the way that you're presenting the material, the way that you're working through the poses, the way that you're holding the space, that's what they want. So yes, they like yoga, but what they're buying is the way that you're doing it. So the more that you can be clear about how you're doing it differently from each other, from other people, and the way that you specifically do things, like your order, your process, what that is actual intellectual property. And that's the thing you make money on. So when you can figure out what your special method for doing things are and make it concrete, and then sort of use that as a template of like, this is how I do business, that's when people will pay more, or pay differently, or engage in different structures with you. So instead of spending, let's say, $20 to drop into a yoga class, maybe now they're going to spend like $4,000 for the year to belong to your membership and watch your online videos and listen to your meditations and right. So that's when you understand that the way you do things is special, unique, and actual intellectual property, then you move differently, you sell differently, and people engage with you and pay you differently.
And do you think it's true to say that for many of us, the thing that we're really good at, where we have our true magic, sometimes that can feel so easeful,
Yes,
because it's truly who we are, that we don't get that actually that's so valuable to someone else that struggles with that particular thing?
That's mastery. I heard Danielle Laporte talk about this one time when she was talking about, she was at a dinner party and she was sitting next to someone who was really amazing at making lemon pies. And she was sitting next to someone on the other side who was a marathon runner. And she thought they were like just amazing. Like one's a baker, one's a marathon runner, and starts talking to them. And she's totally fascinated by what they're doing. And they don't think it's any big deal because it's easy for them. The thing that is easy for you is the thing that you can sell and that other people most want to learn from you. So the thing that's easy for you is actually like that special sauce.
Mm.
And what it is when you're in your mastery, you're in a sense of a state of flow. It is easy for you. So you want to try to activate those states of mastery. And that's the thing. Like that's the thing that you sell. And that's the thing that changes your business and your revenue.
Yeah, I mean, so often I've been working with clients, giving them support or coaching, and we're talking about their offerings and they're grappling with some difficult thing that they're trying to birth and pull together. And then from left field, they'll be like, oh yeah, there's also this other thing that I do. Like I can think of a specific client at the moment who I've been working with who is creating an online course. And then she just mentioned the other day, oh, I also create these artworks, these mandalas. And I was like, oh, show me the mandalas. Oh my God, like the most incredible, exquisite things I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, why is that the side hustle? Why is that the kind of like, oh, I just do this on the side thing? That's the goal. That's the incredible thing that no one else can do. So it's just having that awareness of who we are and what we offer and seeing it through a different lens, I think sometimes.
Yeah, I think we devalue the things that are easy for us, but those are like, that's talent, that's skill, that's mastery. So we need to remember that. And it's especially useful to other people.
Yeah. There's also a part of the insight around that I've had as I've been doing your training on this is realizing there's a respect piece in here. So one of the things my teacher taught me very early, my teacher Sharon Gannon at Jivamukti Yoga, she would remind us time and time again to be very respectful of any teacher's class that we went to. So she would say, it's never just Sally's class at 2 p.m. in the gym on a Tuesday. See Sally as a holy being who's here to really be a conduit for these teachings. And if you sit in the seat of the student with that level of respect, then Sally becomes the teacher that you desire to work with. And so I've often had that piece in my mind over the years around really showing up with respect in people's teachings and containers. But then I realized quite recently through doing your training, the flip side of that is when I give great respect and sanctity to my work, and I see it through the lens of this is powerful, this is sacred, this is something that is of great value, it becomes amplified, not just for me, but also for the people that are receiving it. The whole thing is elevated.
It is. And there's something there. I literally was having a conversation about this morning with one of my closest friends. She's at a pivotal moment in her business and she's writing a book. And the epiphanies that she's coming to is that she needs to take herself more seriously. And I just want to say that anyone who has a marginalized identity who's watching this or listening to this right now, we have been conditioned to not take ourselves seriously. We have been conditioned to be subservient to other people's agendas, and our agendas don't matter. So there is some like reclamation of like really grappling with how valuable the work is that you do and how essential it is to people, and really taking your work seriously. And I mean, it doesn't mean that you walk around and like, I am the expert and authority of all things, but there is something really important and really powerful and really liberatory about taking yourself seriously as a creator and a teacher. Yeah. It's important.
Yeah. And holding the work in high esteem, holding it in reverence.
Well, and then what you do, you protect it too, right? Like you protect things you care about. You protect things that are serious and valuable. So now you're not going to let people, talk shit to you. And now you're not going to let people override the time that you set aside to do this thing. This was really important to me when my last baby was born. I had this epiphany. I had 5 children at home, including a newborn who had colic and cried for 9 months straight. And I was taking them on all these things and all these events and doing all these things. And I had this epiphany. It was like, if I continue the way that I'm doing, then what my tombstone will read was, she kept a clean house. Like and when I realized that, I was like, I'm not protecting my own body of work. I'm not protecting the time it creates that I need to create. And if I'm not protecting that time, it's not going to happen. So what I'm trying to say is, like, when you take yourself and your life seriously, then you start putting some boundaries around the time you need to create. And so I wouldn't let people come over in the middle of the day. And like, I just started guarding my time and protecting it because this was serious. It was serious to me that this body of work comes forward. So I really want to encourage us to take our work seriously, to really hold ourselves as creators, and then protect the structures and time and supports that you need to do that, to bring that forward.
Mm. And I think one of the really simple ways that we can begin, like a baby step with that, is in the way that we speak about our work and not being dismissive. Oh, like this is just this little thing I've done, or this is, oh, it's nothing. But actually, you know, holding it in through our language and the way that we speak with that care, with that consideration.
Yeah. And I would even say, like, there's no such thing as a side hustle. Like, your work is your work. Whether or not it's doing well at this moment, whether or not it's what you spend your full-time hours on, work is work, right? You bring it forth. So yeah, I don't want us to be self-deprecating or diminishing when we're talking about our work or talking about the things that we do. And don't let other people do it either. So when I first started working online, a family member who I have a very fractious relationship with described me to a group of people. We were at an event and she described me as this crazy blogger. And I was so upset by that. And I was like, I am not this crazy blogger. You know, like, you can't diminish the work that I'm doing. This is what I'm doing. So I don't mean we need to be out there and be combative, but don't let people diminish what you're doing, and don't let yourself diminish what you're doing.
Yeah. There's one final piece I want to ask you about, and it's actually in the same vein of the narratives that we have around the work that we're doing. And a piece of work that you have done that was such a bright insight for me was around this idea of the before and after story, or the Cinderella narrative.
Right, the makeover myth, yes.
Right, the makeover myth. It's so prevalent, and I'd never really even seen it or identified it as a thing until I started engaging with your work. And then I was like, oh my goodness, this is everywhere. And it's very rife in yoga world. So I'd love to hear you just speak a little bit about what that is, why it shows up, and why it's really helpful for us to not present our work in that way.
So it's a tool that was developed by maybe it wasn't developed by him, but it was really operationalized by Jeff Walker, who wrote a book called Launch. And in that book, he maps out all these different social triggers that you can add on to your launch sequences to get people to buy things. And what they all are subconscious human programming things that make us do certain things. So we get this stimuli and then click where we behave in a certain way. So the makeover myth, what it's designed to do is to manufacture authority. So when people engage with someone who has status, we pick up the signals of status. So we pick up wealth signals, we pick up body language signals, we pick up different signals that says this person has status and authority and power in our culture, and I should listen to them. And so that we slip into this deference mode of we start doing what they tell us to do, or we start exhibiting behaviors that will gain favor with them. And so as soon as someone is trying to manufacture authority, we automatically, on a subconscious level, start to obey or defer to them. So that is a great thing to do if you're a salesperson, is to manufacture authority so people obey you and buy. And what I want for us to do is just watch for that. So the makeover myth says, you know, I was once broke, fat, stupid, and ugly. And I use fat deliberately as a negative thing, but I don't think being fat is deliberate. Someone can describe me as fat, you know, and it's not a problem. It's not a slur, but I'm using it in like the traditional mainstream kind of way. So you are all of these things. I was once these things, just like you, this low status person who you don't want to be that thing. And now I'm a high status person. And here's my magical secret. So what that is instead of leading with qualifications, which is like, I'm certified in this, I'm trained in this, I get these people, these results, we're leading with status and unearned privilege and triggering people to be deferential to us subconsciously. So I want us to watch that. That's what makeover myths are. It's like, I used to be this, you know, sweeping the fireplace, and then I had a magic, you know, experience, and now I'm a princess. So it's all about unearned privilege. It's all about status. It's all about manufacturing authority rather than earning it. I don't have any problem with earned authority. You know, if you have a PhD and you have 100 hours of yoga certification and you have all these different qualifications and they help you get the results that people and the transformations that people are looking for, that's earned authority. I respect that. I'm not here for us to leverage wealth and leverage whiteness and thinness and able-bodiedness and all the different markers of privilege and power that are unearned in order to sell things. So that's why I think we need to watch for that makeover story. At the same time, it's okay to talk about results. It's okay to talk about transformations, but we just have to watch where we're also layering in unearned privilege to amplify that and get people to obey us. So that's why I want us to watch for the makeover myths, because they're actually about privilege, unearned authority, and subconsciously triggering people into things. So one of the ways that we can correct that is you can talk about a transformation, you can talk about your journey, but also double down on your substance and your results. So really convey those. And you can actually explicitly break the spell, like the subconscious triggering, because subconscious triggering only works when it's below the level of consciousness. So if you simply say, listen, I don't want you to think X, Y, and Z, or watch for this reaction, or what have you, what you did is you raised the whole process to the level of consciousness, and now that spell doesn't work, right? So if, I don't know if anyone here knows about pickup artists, but pickup artists like to do this thing where they nag a woman, like nag, like negative. So they'll say something like, oh, not everyone can carry off that mustard green color, but, I think maybe it's working to you, right? So they nagged you, right? So now you kind of subconsciously, what happens is now you want to prove your worth to them, right? And so now they're in the power position of getting you to do what they want. So what I'm trying to say with that is, if that's happening on the below the level of subconscious, as soon as you break the spell and say it consciously, it doesn't work anymore. So if you know that nagging exists and someone just did that to you, you say, oh my goodness, did you just nag me? The spell is broken, right? So, but we as entrepreneurs can do the same thing. So on my sales pages, for example, I often will have countdown timers. Now, I, on one hand, don't like countdown timers because they can trigger subconscious scarcity. And humans, when scarcity is in the room, will try to gather resources. So they will subconsciously buy because they're feeling activated by scarcity. But my neurodiverse audience has told me that countdown timers are super helpful because it helps people who are time blind track time. So I'm like, okay, so I want to be accessible. So I will put countdown timers on, but right below I'll say, listen, this is not about scarcity. This is so that my neurodiverse folks can track time carefully. If you're feeling activated, pause, don't worry, this gets launched again in 6 months or what have you. So I break the spell of the subconscious triggering by raising it to the level of consciousness. So then people can make deliberate decisions. So wherever possible, raise things to the level of consciousness, because then those subconscious triggers don't work.
Mm. And in doing so, really what you're doing for your audience is you're creating a profound safety. Like they're really able to trust you as someone who they can purchase from, knowing that they haven't been kind of duped or manipulated. Like there's a real genuine sense of engaging in a trust relationship.
Well, let's think about this. Like the people that you work with in your space, the people who are watching right now, the work is transformation. Why do we do yoga? It's not to be bendy, right? We do yoga to prepare ourselves for seated meditation, to have spiritual, transcendent experiences, right? So that's the business of transformation. I am a coach. My business is transformation. I'm a feminist business coach. My business is transformation, through the lens of culture making and cultural change. I am not here to subconsciously manipulate people into then doing vulnerable, transformative work. The two things don't go together. So I literally can't do that. Like I can't trick people into feminist business analysis. Like that doesn't work. And it doesn't work for spiritual work either. We can't trick people into being vulnerable. So to me, and when I look at this, is like the way that we market has to be part of the transformation. It has to be consistent with it. So my job as a feminist business coach is to help people make informed decisions, make responsible culture making decisions, and empower their lives. I can't disempower them to help them empower themselves. That just undermines my work in the world. So, and one of my friends and business partners, Danielle Cohen, she does something called visibility medicine, where she helps people sort of break through all the different things that hold them back from visibility. And most of it is social conditioning or personal trauma. So she helps people do that work. And what she sees, and she gets this feedback regularly, that as soon as people commit to doing the work, even if the course is 4 weeks away, something starts happening immediately as part of the process. So I think the sales process and the act of committing to doing work is part of the transformation. It's the seeds of the transformation. So I want that whole process to be in integrity with the work that I'm trying to facilitate around empowerment and culture making and shame busting and like stepping into your personal deliberate power.
I love that. And you know, I was just thinking as you were speaking then, this whole idea of the sort of Cinderella story, or the before and after, the makeover myth. Actually, you know, the way that spiritual transformation or any type of transformation happens is usually incremental and cyclical. Like, it's very rare in our lives that we truly have a before and after kind of, I was so shit and now I'm so amazing. It's like, well, I was a bit shit and then I became more amazing, and then I kind of stepped back into the shit a bit, and then, you know, and it's sort of
Well,
like
13 years later, after consistent effort, something happened.
right. And so when we reflect the journey as being somewhat convoluted, that's so much more of a realistic and kind of resonant paradigm than this black and white before and after, which none of us really experience in our lives.
Yeah. And I mean, it's nobody comes and waves a magic wand. Like, it's very rare that you get like discovered on the street and the next day you're a millionaire and your life, you know, like that just doesn't happen very often. So like, there's a way in which we all do have a before and after story. You know, like 13 years ago, I was a single mom in poverty, like real desperate situation, you know, and now I am a mom who can pay for her child to go to university and can take care of the elders in her family. And like, my situation has changed and I am personally a different person. I'm much bolder, stronger, more anchored, way less reactive. That is true. You know, and all that's in between there is like 13 years of like one foot in front of the other, right? It wasn't a magic. It wasn't a magic experience. It was, I learned a whole bunch of skills. I practiced them. The little things were actually the big things, showing up every day, constantly honing my skill, getting better and better at certain things. It's a long game, right? The truth is, it's a long game. It's not a fairy godmother. And I think we need to, and when we double down on the fairy godmother and the makeover moment and the breakthrough moment, what we're doing is actually undermining our own skill, right? If you're a skilled teacher, you know it takes time. It's not a magic wand moment. Epiphanies are delicious, but epiphanies acted on, that's a decade of work. So I don't want us to undermine our own skill. I want us to double down on, there's skill here, there's learnings, and that's what we're here to work with people on.
Two last quick questions. I'd love to know a little bit about what you're working on at the moment, like what's alive in you at the moment, what are you creating? And then final question, because I know you're a prolific reader and so am I, and many of your book recommendations I have loved. Give us a book recommendation, something that's juicy that people might want to dive into at the moment.
Okay, I'm terrible for book recommendations, honestly, because I read like 4 books a week. So whenever you ask me, I'm like, I don't even know. I've got hundreds of books bouncing
Well, we
around.
could say, what are you reading at the moment? We could even go with that.
Okay, so what I'm reading at the moment is actually a book called World's Strongest Librarian by Josh Hanagarny. And Josh Hanagarny in 2008 and 2009 was one of my first online champions. You know, when I was a blogger and I had 4 people reading my blog, he was one of them. And he was just a great friend to me. And he had this book, it was reviewed in the New Yorker. It came out probably 7 years ago. And for some reason, I never read it. And I was just reflecting on this and I was like, I haven't talked to Josh for a long time. I never read the book. I'd really like to read the book. So, and he is an incredible person where he's a 6'6" librarian who has Tourette's and often screams all day in the library. And what he did is he learned how to become a bodybuilder to use up some of the energy that Tourette's seemed to react off of. And it did actually like manage his symptoms a little bit better, but he's just had an amazing life. He's a Mormon who left Mormonism, you know, like he's just had this, he's just a fascinating person. So I was like, why have I never read this book? Anyway, so that's what I'm reading. So I'm very excited to be reading that. And what was the other question? What am I working on? What's alive in me? I mean, so many things. What's alive in me? You know, I just want to be in the water all the time. That's very alive in me. It's summertime in Canada. All I want to do is be in the ocean and be in the lake or be on the lake, or that's all I want to do. I just finished a book called Say Something That Matters, which is about how to be countercultural using modern media tools. So how do we do things our way on social media using various technical tools without getting co-opted by them? So it's my approach to social media, my countercultural rogue approach to social media. That's what that book is about. And what's alive in me? What am I creating? I mean, I'm always creating a million things at once. But the thing that's coming next for me is I'm developing a course that ties all my little offers together. So I have a million different courses you can take about how to do a business. But what I'm doing is drawing it together in one place so we have a journey. Like, let's do this first, then let's do that. Let's not ad hoc it. That's like, here's the journey of how to start a business that is culture making, that is transformative, that is based on responsible marketing. That's Toy Smith's phrase, responsible marketing. I like that so much better than ethical marketing, because someone can have terrible ethics and still, and therefore be doing ethical marketing, right? I want us to be responsible for our cultural impact with our marketing. So that's what's coming next, is I'm curating a course that is about ethical marketing that changes the culture and changes your life and changes your business. So how do we get out of shame? How do we end into power? How do we create resources on our terms using feminist business practices? That's what's happening now behind the scenes.
May I ask you one last question?
Sure.
I'm fascinated just from a personal perspective. How much time do you spend working? And when you're not working, do you have good boundaries around that? Or are you a little bit of a workaholic? Like, how does it, because you're so prolific in your work, and I'm just interested what that looks like in terms of your lifestyle.
Yeah, I'm a lot of a workaholic, but it's a joyful thing. Like, it's not I work and I'm drained and exhausted from work. The more I work, the more energy I have. So it's like this labor of love that I love. So I do work a lot, and I am getting much better about boundaries and doing things that like regenerate and rejuvenate me. I live in a town where I don't have a lot of friends. So I don't have a lot of in real life friends. I haven't lived here very long. I don't have a lot of roots here, but I do have a lot of children. So I have a lot of like social stuff with them and love and things like that. I think my life is very full. I think it's really rich. Like, it's not just centered around work, but I create a lot, and I create a lot of time to create. And so one of the shifts I'm making in my life right now is just sort of reorganizing my business so I have a little bit more alone time to create, since that's the fire that lights me up. That's where I'm happiest, is when I'm creating. I really like spending a lot of time alone. And so I'm just rejigging my business to be more creation focused and less sort of like, not customer focused, but like less my time is split up into little slivers. So that's something that I'm doing personally, is just creating more time to create. And it's actually better for my business too, because all of my ideas are what ends, and my communications and my writing are what creates money for me. So the more I can protect my creation time, the better I do. And then also the more impact I have in the world, because these rogue ideas are the things that like upset industries and create new practices.
Kelly, thank you so much for your
work a lot, but I love it. You're so welcome. Thank you for asking me. Thank you.
I'm so grateful that we've been able to spend this time together. I appreciate you so deeply. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for everyone for your time. Like, attention is a gift. So I'm so glad that people took the time to listen to us.